Hey, Glenn here, Monster Guitars. Old Brass is finished, and it's kind of beautiful. Is it the most beautiful guitar that I've ever made? Well, I don't know. That's partly subjective, but I like it. It's definitely a contender. So yeah, as I said in the last video, there were some delays. I was waiting on some string trees to arrive. I had to decide between a couple, but that's on now. I also went ahead with the design feature that I've done on a previous guitar and wanted to reproduce it here. So I did that. That took a little bit of time. Did some adjustments. Are they repairs? No, not repairs. I had to do some adjustments. You'll see about these in the video. But anyway, it's all done. Looks so good. Feels great. I think I'm getting better at this. Both at building guitars, making them look nice, and setting them up, which is hugely important as well. See what you think. Here's the video of how it all went down. It's kind of long because there are a few different processes in this, but I didn't want to make you wait for another video, so here we go. Enjoy. One of the design decisions that I've made is based on something I did on another guitar, which is still sitting unfinished, an elm-topped Strat style guitar, and I thought it was quite effective, and that is using some of the wood, or same type of wood that's on the top, some sapele. I'm going to route away a section here and inlay it there. I thought that looked rather effective, and I think it will here as well. So using a hole saw, I cut a large circular hole here, which is what I will use to clamp down onto the guitar body on the back and route out the recessed section to be inlaid. That part's easy. What I then want to do, of course, is make an inlay that is exactly the same size as that hole. And of course I can't just use the hole saw that I used to cut this, because that has a kerf, the thickness of the blade, which means that the resulting circular piece that comes out will be very slightly smaller than that circle by the thickness of the blade. So what to do? Well, and this is what I'm going to try out. I'm just opening the box now. I've seen pictures of it, so I know kind of what it looks like. But this is a circle cutting jig that I will use on my trim router, which is quite adjustable, and I should be able to, maybe with a couple of trials, which is fine, should be able to cut a template that is exactly the right size. So the setup was a tiny bit fiddly. All the instructions are non-English, so I just had to look at the pictures and sort of intuit my way around the thing, but that seems pretty good. So it replaces the original base on a trim router, or I suppose any router, and there's a little pin there, so that pin slots into the hole, and then by loosening that knob you can adjust the size of the hole. So it's set up in such a way that the size of the circle set up in such a way that you can make very small circles if you need to. But I think I have it set, and I'll try and, you can't really see, it's a bit cramped in there. I think I have it set up in such a way that I should be cutting just outside the kerf. There may be some trials if I don't cut to exactly the right size, but in principle, oops, sorry about that, in principle this looks like the way to go. So let's give this a try. Well, that was easy. I didn't cut out a full circle because I don't need to cut out a full circle, and you'll see why in a moment. Oh yeah, and it looks to me like I've got that just where I want it. So I have cut just outside of the saw kerf. Now the last time I did an inlay like this on the back of a guitar body, I took the wood that I was going to do the inlay with, in this case a piece of sapele, and I did some sanding on a piece of that wood so that I had plenty of wood dust from it, and then I made a paste of that wood dust and glue and used that as a putty and squashed that into the seam between the two pieces just to make sure that there would be no gaps, and I'll do that again. That is in there tight, which is just how I want it. That's a perfect fit. Yep, all the way in. Okay, optimism is running high. Let's do it on the real wood now. Like it was made for it. I hope I've sanded enough of this. Oh no, that's not good. Not good at all. I thought I had done a lot more than that. Oh, maybe we're getting there. Yeah, actually that might be okay. Yes. Hopefully, surely. Oh yeah, I think we'll be okay. I don't do this often, so I'm not really sure how much is going to be enough, but then I can see it on the project now and it looks fine. And then it will squeeze out and I'll realise, oh, I've got more than enough. Just anywhere there might be a visible gap at an edge, I'm putting this there so that, well, so that it will fill that passable gap. The glue will make it slide in a little bit more easily. It's all slightly experimental. It is the following day. Let's see what we have here. Okay, it looks good. I mean, you can obviously see the line where the seam is because the woods are completely different colours, and that gap seems to be filled by that paste that I made. I can't see any gaps on the surface there, which is good. I'm just going to go and trim some parts of this off before I come back with my router. I'll use my bandsaw for that. Now there's going to be some sanding here, but that's good. There are no gaps at all between this layer and the underlying Remu, so that's cool. I maybe cut the roundover ever so slightly deep, but I can transition that all smoothly with sanding, which I'll do now. I wasn't sure whether or not I would put one of these in, but obviously I've decided to. A belly carve, just to make the instrument more comfortable to hold. Well, no going back now, is there? Start with a very aggressive wood rasp. If this was going to be especially deep, I've left my garage door open just because it's a nice day. I would do what I've done sometimes and make a series of saw cuts and then chisel them out, but you don't have to do that. There are many ways to skin a cat. Alright, let's move on to something still somewhat aggressive but a little bit finer. The third file that I'm using is, now the brand is not Iwasaki, but Iwasaki is famous for making these. It's a chemically polished file, and instead of having the traditional teeth of a rasp, each tooth is kind of like a miniature plane blade, and it leaves a really smooth finish. Right, the basic shape is done. Now it's just a matter of smoothing everything and blending all the lines and whatnot. This is a really quick job. Now, of course, you can just use this. This has got 240 grit on it, and so it's not going to be gouging away very much material at all. It does reveal where there are still some coarse scratches to take out, and that's fine, I'll do that by hand. Let's make a cover for the control cavity, and I'll be making it out of the same sapele that's on the top and now in this inlay here. This is the template that I used to route the insert for the cover, so I should really use that again. The grain moves slightly, but it's all more or less in the same direction here, so I'll try to preserve that direction. Could push that in and it would squeak its way into place, but I don't want to quite do that. I don't want it to be that tight. I won't go power sanding it. I'll just take the smallest amount off each side by hand sanding, and then I think we'll be okay. So that's roughly right. I will give it a little bit more hand sanding just to make sure there are no swirl marks or anything like that. But looking good, I think. And there we go. I didn't show you me doing this, but I cut a notch here to make it easy to remove. The very last thing that I want to do to the body is because of something I noticed when I was demonstrating why we use string trees in a previous video. I put a string on the guitar and I was playing it, and it was the number 1 string. And I noticed that as the string progressed up the neck, it started to get a little bit closer to the edge of the fretboard. It actually looked worse than it is in that video, but you may be able to spot it. I'll try and find a screenshot and show you that now. But I noticed it and I wasn't happy with that. It was playable, but it was a slight defect. And there are various ways of fixing that. Sometimes your neck joint is such that you can slightly adjust the angle of the neck by the tiniest little amount. I can't do that just because I've got these threaded inserts and machine screws. And the other option is very slightly reposition the bridge. And really I think that's how the problem arose. When I drilled the holes for the bridge, it was off by just a tiny amount. So what I'm going to do is, I was waiting for these to arrive. These are 5mm walnut dowels. I couldn't get sapele ones, but walnut's okay. The point is, I wanted to find a dark wood which is at least somewhat close to the color of the top to plug the screw holes, and then drill new ones that are no more than 1.5 millimeters, maybe 2 millimeters at a push, that away. Now, the color matching may be a little bit over the top because obviously it's going to be right under the bridge plate and you'll never see them, but you know, I like things to be nice. Alright, come back later, maybe tomorrow. I rather like my flush cut saw, but the blade is starting to look like it may want replacing now. This is probably going to slightly scratch up the surface because I'm not covering things, but that's alright. I will do another sand. You do lots of that, you know, sanding. Here we are. I would say like they were never there, but that would be to wildly overstate the cleanliness of that repair. I'm going to take the saddles off. It'll just give me better visibility and access. I need to mark where I'm going to put these holes in a clear way. It does seem like a lot of work for a very small difference, but it's an important difference. It is an important difference because, well, the interface between the string and your hand and the fretboard is, I mean, it's pretty much the most important part of the guitar, even though it has nothing to do with how the guitar looks. Okay, now I can see just because of the string holes that this has moved slightly this way. It still almost overlaps the string holes. It won't be any trouble feeding the strings through, but I think now, well, it's going to be a bit more pleasing to play. Let's find out. So I'm calling it a success. I put a string in first position and a string in sixth position. The string that's there is actually a B string, not an E string, because I used up the E string demonstrating why we have string trees, and I couldn't get it back in, but that's okay. So that's cool. Look at that. That is, in my opinion, a really good distance from the edge of the fretboard for both of those strings. And as a nice bonus, I'm hovering directly above the bridge pickup, and that's good positioning. It isn't dead center, but it is overlapping the pole, and same there. And in both cases, the string is just on the outside half of the pole, so it's nice and symmetrical. I'd say that's as good as this could be. I'm moving on to finish. The finish on this instrument is Odie's oil. Odie's oil, which is a very nice smelling product. The broad category of finish that it is a hard wax oil. You apply it with an abrasive pad, in this case fine synthetic steel wool. You really rub it into the grain. Okay, that's fully covered. I'll let that sit for a few hours and then come back and give it a buff with a soft cloth. Generally with Odie's oil, you only ever need to put one coat on, but you can do two. Once I've buffed it down after the first coat, I'll do this side and the edges, buff it down, flip it over, do the other side, and then decide if I want to do another light coat. I may do. Once I've put some shielding in these pickup cavities, I've already put shielding in the control cavity, I'll then go on and start doing some wiring. I will say that when I first started building guitars, I said that wiring is my least favorite part of the build. And it maybe still is, although I'm not wild about fretting either. But part of the reason I said it is that I just wasn't very good at it. And we have a tendency to say, oh, I don't like that, if we're not good at something. I'm getting better at it now, so I don't hate it as much, but it's definitely never going to be my favourite part of the process. I would be suspicious of anyone who said it was their favourite part. I'm halfway through, well, maybe more like 3/4 of the way through working on the wiring. Don't forget this. This is, and there are a number of ways you might attach or connect a ground wire to the bridge depending on the type of bridge, but in this case, just under the bridge plate, I've drilled a hole through to the control cavity, and that's where my little wire is going to snake through. I will attach a piece of copper tape to it just to make it easier to pin down with the bridge, and yeah, make sure you do it. Last minute details and changes. I had been going to put these knobs on. I mean, they're the right sort of color, and I really like the rough knurled surface on them, but I have these other ones that just feel better. These are very lightweight. They do feel like metal, but they just don't, being very subjective, they don't feel as serious, and they don't quite look as professional in my opinion. So I'm going with these ones. Slightly more heavyweight, there's definitely more metal in them. So this one will come off. cutting the slots in the nut now to the appropriate depth, and there are different ways of going about this. I cut them with the strings on. This brass nut comes with the positions already cut in there, but there's no real depth to those slots. So I just file away and then keep rechecking by putting the string back into the slot until it's the right height. I'm getting confused with the word nut. Right height over the first fret. String tree time. Now this, more than anything else, is what was holding up the build of this guitar. I wasn't able to find a string tree with the same aged looking brass finish, which was a little bit annoying. That would have been nice. I did try a couple of things. I got a Goto vintage style string tree in aged or relict nickel, and that was close, but not quite. I got some gold roller string trees. Do I have these around? I know the nickel ones are not here, they're elsewhere just now. Yes. Got some gold ones, and I tried to relic those, and they do look relict. They do look aged, but they still don't look the right colour. I scuffed them up and I put them in, actually they're pretty close, but I've decided not to use them. And I put them in some liver of sulphur and some vinegar and salt just to try to, they do look good, but no, just to try to relic them. But in the end, I thought that I would have something that looked like a very close attempt, but not quite at the colour, and I wasn't happy with that. I would rather go with something that is just a different colour and doesn't look like I've almost but not quite got it right. You may have heard of the company Graphtec. They make guitar nuts. I'm not using a Graphtec nut here. Of what looks like bone. I believe you can get black ones as well, but it's not bone. It's a synthetic product, and it's not Teflon. I don't know what it is, but it's permanently lubricated nuts and saddles. Strings just slide very easily over them, which is the appeal of them. And it's black, so no one's going to think, oh, you didn't quite get the colour right. Well, no kidding, it's not the same colour. So I'm going to put a couple of these on. Now these Graphtec sets do come with a shorter screw as well, and you can sand off the bottom of these if you want your string tree to sit lower, but I think that's doing a pretty good job. If when I'm playing it I think it's not, I will use that shorter screw. Alright, now I would say it's finished. That's not entirely true, but I'm actually going to end this video before the guitar is finished, although I will give it a play just to hear how it sounds. And that's because after some searching I did find the perfect finish strap buttons, but they won't be here for a little while yet, and the guitar is basically finished. I don't want to hold the video up just for the sake of those buttons. They will arrive soon enough. So let's give it a whirl, see how it sounds. it's done. It's done, apart from some nice strap lock buttons which I have ordered but which are not here yet. I didn't want to delay things. Is this, and this is kind of a silly question to ask because it's based to a large extent on taste, but is this the most beautiful guitar that I've ever made? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's different in kind from some of the other guitars I've made, but I dare say that over time I am getting better at this, which is what you would hope. Eagle-eyed people will have noticed that the appearance of each P90 pickup is now reversed. I noticed during the build process that it looked as though they weren't, but I could see from the back that they were, and that's because these covers are reversible. So I've reversed those, one of them now, and it looks more like you would expect a guitar to look. It's done. Look at it feels great. One thing I'm definitely getting better at is the setup. So, on to other instruments, and there is a pile of other instruments that I haven't finished yet. Also, those of you who have been watching the channel for a while will possibly be wondering what became of that red SG styled guitar. I will be going on to finish that off shortly. The reason I haven't yet is that I lost it temporarily. In the move, there are kind of boxes in all sorts of places, and I wasn't sure where it was, but just recently, after some searching, I discovered the box where that guitar is, so I'm going to finish that shortly. It's very nearly there, so there'll just be one more short video on that. I don't know which one is going to be next because there are so many things I could do, and there are other things going on in life. But until I do come back, and you come back, and we meet here at the channel, stay safe out there.